Welcome to our deep dive. Today we're taking a look at something a little different.
Yeah.
Ibn Khaldun's Muqaddimah, a 14th century text from the Muslim world.
Hmm.
And you might not think a book that old would be so fascinating.
Right.
The full title translates to An Introduction to History, but as we'll see, it goes way deeper than that.
Oh, yeah. It's much more than just like a straightforward historical account.
Yeah.
It's really a deep dive into...
Almost like a philosophy of history, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's a philosophy of history. It's social theory.
Yeah.
It touches on economics, politics.
I mean, he's really trying to understand, like, the big forces
Yes.
that shape civilizations,
The
right?
patterns, yeah.
Okay, so who was this guy?
So Ibn Khaldun was this incredibly sharp thinker, lived in the Muslim world during a time of massive change and upheaval.
I mean, we're talking about the 14th century, right?
13th century, exactly.
Got a lot going on.
God. Yeah, the Black Death was ravaging parts of the world.
Yeah, empires were rising and falling.
Absolutely. You had the decline of the Abbasid Caliphate, the rise of new powers like the Ottoman Empire. It was a period of intellectual ferment as well.
Yeah, so like how did all of this context shape his work? I mean, it's not like he was just some scholar, right?
Not at all. He was not just some scholar stuck in an ivory tower. I mean, he traveled all across North Africa. From Morocco to Egypt, he worked for sultans,
Wow.
served as a judge.
Like actually in the real world?
Yeah, even negotiated treaties. Can you imagine the insights he must have gained from seeing firsthand how these different societies function?
Like it's like he was living history instead of just reading about it.
Exactly. He was immersed in it.
Yeah.
He experienced the dynamics of power,
Yeah.
the complexities of different cultures,
Yeah.
and all of that is reflected in the Muqaddimah.
Okay, so from all those experiences, what did he actually set out to do with this book?
Right?
Was he just trying to write like a standard history book?
Not at all.
Like, here are the dates and the battles and...
No, the Muqaddimah was something much more ambitious.
Okay.
He wanted to understand the underlying patterns of history,
Okay.
why civilizations rise and fall,
Yeah.
how cultures develop, what makes some societies thrive.
And others just completely crumble.
Exactly. He was looking for the big picture,
Yeah.
the forces that shape human destiny.
Okay, so he's looking for the big picture, the forces that shape human destiny. Okay, but what makes him so different from other historians? I mean, people have been writing about history for centuries.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Right.
And here's the thing.
Okay.
Ibn Khaldun was skeptical.
He didn't just take things at face value.
He didn't. He noticed that a lot of historical accounts were full of errors, exaggerations, even outright fabrications.
People just making stuff up.
Making stuff up, exactly.
Yeah.
And he believed that historians had a duty to go beyond the surface and to critically examine their sources.
So instead of just repeating the same old stories, he's questioning everything.
Questioning everything, digging for evidence, applying logic.
This sounds like the original fact checker.
Exactly. He was way ahead of his time in that sense.
Yeah.
He even used a method called qiyas, which is analogical reasoning.
Qiyas.
Yeah.
Okay, now hold on. I need a little more on that.
Sure.
How does qiyas work?
So it involves comparing a current situation to a similar one from the past to help make judgments.
Okay.
So imagine you're a judge
Right.
trying to decide a case and there's no clear precedent.
Okay. Yeah.
You might look back at similar cases
Mm-hmm.
and how they were ruled to inform your decision.
So you're looking for parallels.
Exactly. You're looking for parallels.
Okay.
You're using analogy
Yeah.
to reason through a problem. Ibn Khaldun applied that same principle to history,
Interesting.
using reason and comparison to test the validity of historical claims.
So he's taking this legal concept and applying it to the study of history.
Exactly.
Looking for parallels,
Yes.
identifying patterns.
Yeah.
Yes,
And then using logic to see if those traditional accounts actually hold up.
precisely.
Okay, did he have specific examples of this in the Muqaddimah?
Oh, absolutely. He tackled some of the biggest stories of his time.
Okay, like what?
For instance, the story of the Israelites crossing the Red Sea.
Okay, yeah, pretty miraculous event.
A miraculous event, right?
Yeah.
Now, most people took this literally as a divine intervention.
Okay.
But Ibn Khaldun, looking at the original Arabic text of the Quran, pointed out that the term used could also refer to a marsh
Okay.
or a reed sea, not necessarily this vast ocean.
Interesting. So he's looking at the language,
Oh, language.
the
That's
context,
the context.
and saying, hey, maybe there's another explanation here
There might be a more natural explanation.
that doesn't require, the sea parting.
Exactly.
Were there other examples of this in the Muqaddimah?
Oh, tons.
Yeah.
He also questioned those accounts of massive populations in ancient times.
Okay, yeah, I've heard about this. Like some of those numbers they seem a little out there.
They seem a little inflated.
Yeah.
And he argued that environmental and social factors would have limited population growth.
Right.
Those huge numbers just didn't add up logically.
He's like, let's be realistic, folks.
Yeah.
Resources are limited.
Exactly.
People need food and water to survive. These populations couldn't have been as big as some claim.
Precisely.
Okay.
And he didn't shy away from challenging stories about powerful figures either.
Oh, interesting. So he's going after the big names.
Yeah, he's willing to question authority.
Yeah.
He debunked the popular tale of Queen al-Abbasa,
Okay.
a prominent figure supposedly marrying a Persian client.
Okay.
He argued that this was incredibly unlikely, given the social norms and the power dynamics of that time.
So he's not afraid to go against the grain.
He's not afraid to go against the grain.
Even when it comes to powerful people.
Even when it comes to powerful people.
And these widely accepted stories.
Exactly. He is dedicated to uncovering the truth.
No matter how uncomfortable it might be.
He's really committed to this idea of like a critical examination of history.
A critical approach.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of what makes Ibn Khaldun so remarkable. He brought this rigorous, almost scientific approach to the study of history.
But what's interesting to me is that he did all of this within an Islamic framework.
Right. That's an important point.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier that he saw history as an Islamic science. Can you unpack that a little bit?
Sure.
How did his faith shape his understanding of history?
Well, for Ibn Khaldun, studying history wasn't just about understanding the past. It was a way to understand God's plan for humanity.
Okay.
He believed that history unfolded according to divine will. And that by studying the patterns of rise and fall, we could glean insights into God's design.
So it's not just about dates and battles.
It's not just about dates and battles.
It's about understanding.
It's about understanding the grand narrative.
The grand narrative of human civilization. As it unfolds according to divine will.
Exactly.
And that's why he felt history was such a crucial subject for Islamic scholarship.
Absolutely, because it provided a way to understand God's will, God's plan, and how it played out in the human world.
Okay, and remember, he was living during this pivotal time for Islam.
Oh, a really transformative period.
Right. The Muslim world had gone through this incredible transformation from a nomadic oral culture to a settled, literate one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he saw this transition as a key factor in the development of Islamic law and Islamic thought.
So in a way, he was trying to make sense of this historical shift and its impact on Islamic society.
That's a great way to put it. And his own life mirrored that transition in a way.
Right. Like
he was born into a family with nomadic roots, but ended up navigating the complex world of courts and cities.
So his personal experiences were directly informing his intellectual pursuits.
Absolutely. He wasn't just theorizing. He was drawing from his own lived experiences.
That's fascinating. But how did his theory of asabiyyah fit into all of this?
Asabiyyah.
Yeah.
A concept that's central to understanding Ibn Khaldun's entire historical framework.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right.
To have my mind blown. Tell me about it.
We'll dive into that next time.
All right.
But just to give you a little teaser, it's more than just a simple translation of group feeling, right?
Yeah.
It's this intense sense of solidarity,
Okay.
loyalty, and shared purpose that binds people together.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess we'll have to wait till next time to learn more.
We'll pick up right where we left off.
All right. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Okay. So last time we left off with this big idea of asabiyyah.
Yeah, asabiyyah.
It sounds like more than just a simple translation of group feeling, though, right?
You're right. It's much more nuanced than that. It's this intense sense of solidarity, loyalty, and shared purpose that binds people together. Ibn Khaldun believed it was the driving force behind the rise of dynasties and civilizations.
So it's like the glue that holds societies together.
Exactly. It's what gives them their strength, their cohesion, their ability to achieve great things.
But how does asabiyyah actually work in practice? Like, can you give me some concrete examples?
Sure. Think about it this way.
Okay.
Imagine a group of nomadic tribesmen.
Okay.
United by blood ties.
Yeah.
Common values. A shared struggle for survival. They have this fierce loyalty to each other.
Okay.
and a willingness to fight for their collective well-being.
Yeah.
That's asabiyyah in its purest form.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this could translate into real power.
Right.
Like these tribesmen, driven by their asabiyyah, they could band together to conquer territories.
Exactly.
Establish dynasties, even build entire civilizations, right?
That's precisely what Ibn Khaldun observed throughout history.
Okay.
He argued that strong asabiyyah allows a group to overcome challenges, to achieve great things, to establish order and stability.
Okay, but here's the thing. If asabiyyah is so powerful, what happens when it starts to fade?
That is the big question.
Yeah, how does a society maintain that level of unity and shared purpose over time?
It's not easy, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Ibn Khaldun believed that asabiyyah is strongest in its early stages.
Okay.
When a group is still struggling for survival.
Right.
When they're united against a common enemy.
Yeah.
Or when they're driven by this powerful shared goal.
So it's like that initial burst of energy and enthusiasm you see in any new movement or organization, right?
Yeah, everyone's fired up.
Everyone's on the same page.
Ready to work together.
Yeah.
To achieve something big.
But what happens when that initial energy fades?
That's where things get interesting. Ibn Khaldun argued that as societies become more successful, more prosperous.
Right, they start to get a little comfortable.
They also become more complacent.
Yeah.
People start focusing on their own individual needs and desires.
Yeah, instead of the collective.
And that sense of collective purpose starts to erode.
It's almost like a natural cycle, isn't it?
It is a cycle.
Success leads to comfort.
Right.
Comfort leads to complacency. And complacency can ultimately lead to decline.
It often does.
But is it inevitable? Is there anything a society can do to counteract this erosion of asabiyyah?
Well, Ibn Khaldun wasn't entirely pessimistic.
Okay.
He believed that strong leadership,
a
shared set of values, and a sense of justice could help to preserve social cohesion.
So you need these institutions that keep people.
Yeah, you need institutions, you need shared values,
you
need a sense of fairness.
Okay.
But he also acknowledged that maintaining asabiyyah over long periods of time was incredibly difficult.
It's almost like a constant balancing act.
It is. It's a delicate balance between individual ambition and collective good.
Yeah.
Between material prosperity and moral strength.
You've hit the nail on the head.
You know, what's fascinating is how Ibn Khaldun connects this concept of asabiyyah to his broader theory of the rise and fall of dynasties.
Right. He argued that dynasties go through these predictable phases, right?
It's a cycle.
They're born out of struggle, they flourish for a time, and then they inevitably decline and collapse.
Right.
It's all tied to the ebb and flow of asabiyyah, right?
It is. It's the underlying force.
Okay, so think back to those nomadic tribesmen we were talking about.
Okay.
They conquer a territory, establish a dynasty.
Right.
But then what happens?
What happens? Well, their descendants grow up in luxury.
Right.
They become accustomed to a life of ease.
Yeah.
And they lose that hunger, that drive, that asabiyyah that propelled their ancestors to greatness.
It's like they've gone soft.
Yeah, they've lost their edge.
They're no longer willing to fight for what they have.
Exactly.
And they become vulnerable to being overthrown.
Right.
By a new group with a stronger sense of asabiyyah.
It's a recurring pattern throughout history.
So, in a way, asabiyyah is both a creative and a destructive force.
That's a great way to put it.
It builds civilizations, but also tears them down.
It's a paradox, isn't it?
Yeah.
This force that can both create and destroy.
And Ibn Khaldun's observations on the nature of civilization itself are just as insightful.
Oh, absolutely.
He didn't just focus on, the political dynamics of dynasties. He was also fascinated by how societies function.
How they develop, how they create wealth, knowledge, culture.
This is where his Muqaddimah gets really interesting for me. It's like he's trying to understand this whole tapestry of human experience.
Interconnectedness of it all.
Right. The economic, the social, the cultural, even the geographic factors that shape who we are and how we live together.
And how those things interact.
Yeah.
He saw civilization as this complex interplay of cooperation and competition.
Okay.
On the one hand, Humans are naturally social creatures.
I mean, that's pretty obvious, right?
It is.
Like, we need each other to survive.
We need each other.
We can't do everything ourselves.
We can't do it all on our own.
We rely on others for food, for shelter.
Companionship, protection.
Right, like all the basic necessities and then all the things that make life interesting and enjoyable.
Exactly. And Ibn Khaldun took this idea a step further.
Okay.
He argued that as civilizations develop, people become more specialized in their skills and trades.
Okay.
Think about it. You have blacksmiths,
right,
weavers, merchants, scholars, everyone contributing their expertise to create a more complex and efficient society.
So we all need each other's skills and talents to make the whole
system work.
It's like a giant puzzle.
It is like a puzzle.
Where each piece has its own
unique role
to play.
He called this the division of labor.
Okay.
And he believed it was essential for economic progress and the advancement of knowledge.
Okay, so we've got this idea of cooperation as this driving force behind civilization.
Yeah.
But didn't you say earlier that Ibn Khaldun also recognized the role of competition?
I did.
So how do those two forces coexist?
That's the fascinating part.
Okay.
He believed that this tension between cooperation and competition was actually the engine of progress.
Interesting.
People come together in cities for mutual benefit, to trade, to share ideas.
To specialize.
But at the same time, they're also vying for resources, for status, for power.
It's like the double-edged sword of progress.
It is a double-edged sword. So cities are like these melting pots of human ambition, where people are constantly striving to improve their lot, to climb the social ladder, to outdo one another.
And he saw that as a good thing.
He saw it as a driving force, he argued, that this constant striving, this desire for self-improvement is what drives innovation, creativity, and economic growth. But he also recognized that it could lead to conflict, to inequality, to the very decline he observed in dynasties.
It's like you're always trying to walk this tightrope between
progress and decline.
Yeah, between competition and cooperation.
Exactly.
That's precisely the dilemma he grapples with.
He grapples with it.
Yeah.
And the Muqaddimah, this tension between our individual desires and the need for social order.
Right, between wanting everything for yourself and recognizing that you have to be part of a
community.
A community, yeah.
Exactly.
And does he have any solutions?
Solutions.
Like any ideas on how to strike that balance?
Well, he believed that a just and strong ruler was crucial for maintaining order and promoting the common good.
So somebody who can sort of...
Yeah, someone who can guide and regulate these competing forces.
But it's not just about the leader, right?
No, it's not just about the leader. He also emphasized the importance of shared values, religious beliefs, a strong sense of community.
So it's not just about laws and institutions.
It's about the cultural and moral fabric of a society.
It's about the glue that holds.
It's about the glue.
Everything together.
Exactly. And this is where his observations on the impact of climate and geography become really interesting.
Okay.
He believed that these environmental factors played a significant role in shaping human societies.
Really? So he's connecting the environment to the way people behave.
He's connecting it to how societies develop, to their cultures, their values, even to their physical characteristics.
Wait, really? He talked about climate and like skin color.
He did. He did talk about the connection between climate and things like skin color.
Wow. Okay.
Now, it's important to acknowledge that his views on race were very much a product of his time.
Right.
He didn't have access to modern genetics or the understanding of human diversity we have today.
Yeah, this is the 14th century.
Exactly. But what's fascinating is that he didn't attribute these differences to any inherent superiority or inferiority.
So he wasn't saying that one group was inherently better than another?
No, not at all. He attributed these variations to the effects of climate and sunlight exposure on different populations over generations.
That's pretty insightful for the 14th century.
He was making some keen observations.
Yeah, but how did he connect this to his broader ideas about civilization?
Well, he argued that temperate zones, with their moderate climates and fertile lands, were most conducive to the flourishing of civilization.
Interesting.
He observed that societies in these regions tended to be more advanced, more prosperous, and more stable.
Right. They've got the resources.
They've got the resources. They've got the favorable climate.
Yeah.
It's not too harsh.
It's like the Goldilocks zone for civilization.
The Goldilocks zone, exactly.
Not too hot, not too cold.
Not too hot, not too cold.
So right.
Just right for civilization to thrive. And he contrasted these temperate zones with the extremes of the deserts and the frozen north.
Right, like much harder to build a thriving
much harder
civilization
to flourish in those environments.
So he's saying that geography plays a huge role.
A huge role.
In shaping not just the physical landscape of a society, and also its culture.
Its values.
Its values, even its political structures.
It shapes everything.
Okay.
And what's even more impressive is how he linked these geographic and climatic factors to economic principles that wouldn't be formally articulated for centuries.
Okay, now you've got to tell me more about that.
All right.
What kind of economic insights was he making back in the 14th century?
Well, for example, he noticed that cities with larger populations tended to have lower food prices.
Okay, that makes sense, right?
It does.
Like it's supply and demand.
Supply and demand.
A larger population creates more demand, which can lead to lower prices.
Exactly.
If the supply can keep up.
If the supply can keep up.
Yeah.
He also observed that wages for skilled labor were higher in these larger, more densely populated cities.
That makes sense, too. If you have more people, you need
more specialized skills.
Right, more specialized skills.
To keep everything running smoothly.
Yeah.
So skilled workers are in higher demand.
Yeah.
And can command higher wages.
He was making these astute observations about the dynamics of markets centuries before. Adam Smith and the formal development of economics as a discipline.
He was a pioneer.
Yeah. It's incredible how much ground he covered.
He had a wide-ranging mind.
Yeah.
Very curious.
It's like he was looking at the world through this multifaceted lens.
Connecting the dots.
Right. Connecting dots that no
one else had even noticed before.
He
was a true visionary thinker.
But we haven't even touched on his philosophical ideas yet.
We haven't even gotten to that.
You mentioned earlier that he was interested in the human soul and its connection to the spiritual realm.
That's a whole other dimension.
Right. I'm really curious to hear more about that side of his work.
All right. We'll definitely explore that.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about politics, economics, even geography.
Yeah.
But what about Ibn Khaldun's exploration of the spiritual and the metaphysical?
That's where things get really intriguing.
Okay.
And it's a side of Ibn Khaldun that's often overlooked.
All right, well, let's delve into that in the final part.
We will.
Of our deep dive.
Let's do it.
So we've been exploring Ibn Khaldun's Muqaddimah, this incredible work that covers everything from the rise and fall of dynasties to the impact of climate on societies.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
But you mentioned that there's this whole other layer. His exploration of the spiritual and the metaphysical.
Right.
I'm really intrigued to hear more about that.
It's a fascinating aspect of his work
that
often gets overshadowed by these theories on history and society.
Yeah, we tend to think of him as like this political scientist or historian.
Or social scientist, yeah. But for Ibn Khaldun, understanding the human soul and its connection to the spiritual realm was just as important as understanding the material world.
So it wasn't just about observing outward behavior and social structures.
He was also trying to delve into the inner workings of the human mind and spirit.
Okay, and this is where his philosophical ideas come into play.
Exactly.
Right.
He was deeply interested in the nature of knowledge.
Okay.
How we perceive the world, how we acquire understanding, and the limits of human reason.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this connects to his skepticism and his emphasis on critical thinking.
Right.
He wasn't just questioning historical accounts.
He was questioning the very nature of how we know what we know.
So for him, true knowledge wasn't just about accepting what you're told.
No.
Or what seems obvious on the surface.
It was about constantly questioning.
Yeah.
Testing. And refining your understanding of the world.
It's like he's saying you can't just be a passive recipient of information.
You have to be active.
You have to.
You have to engage with it critically.
You have to think for yourself.
Exactly.
This is where it gets really interesting for me. Like, what were some of the specific spiritual or metaphysical concepts he explored in the Muqaddimah?
Well, he was particularly fascinated by dream visions.
Dreams.
Dreams.
Wow, that's not what I expected.
Yeah, it might seem a little surprising.
Yeah.
But he believed that dreams could offer these glimpses into the supernatural realm.
Okay.
A kind of window into a reality beyond our everyday senses.
So he wasn't just dismissing dreams as just like these random firings of the brain.
He saw them as potentially containing hidden meanings.
Interesting. So he thought maybe there were
messages from the divine.
Messages, yeah. Okay.
So it's like a form of spiritual communication.
Could be, right. Could be.
A way for God or the divine to communicate with humanity.
Through these symbolic and often enigmatic messages.
That makes sense. And remember, Ibn Khaldun was deeply steeped in Islamic tradition.
Yes.
Where dreams and visions have always
played a significant role
in
religious experience. It's very much within that tradition.
But it's interesting to think about how
his ideas about dreams resonate even with modern psychology.
Absolutely. Yeah. We might not attribute dreams to divine intervention.
Right. But we still
recognize the power of dreams to tap into our subconscious.
Yeah. To reveal hidden desires and fears, to spark creative insights.
Exactly. And that's what makes Ibn Khaldun's work so enduring.
Yeah.
Even though he was writing centuries ago, his insights into the human mind and the nature of reality still have relevance today.
Okay, so besides dreams, what other metaphysical or spiritual concepts did he explore?
Well, he delved into the concept of prophetic revelation.
Okay, so how prophets receive messages from God.
Exactly, how those messages shape religious communities.
Yeah, and he also explored the different levels of spiritual development in human beings.
Suggesting that some individuals are capable of reaching higher levels of understanding and connection with the divine.
That's fascinating. So he wasn't just describing this outer world of politics and society.
He was also mapping out an inner world of spiritual growth and understanding.
And all of this was informed by his Islamic worldview.
Absolutely. The belief in one God, the importance of revelation, and the idea that the material world is just one aspect of a larger, more complex reality.
So for him, studying history, understanding society, even exploring the human soul were all part of this larger quest.
A larger quest.
To understand God's plan and our place in the universe.
To understand the divine will and how it plays out the human experience.
It's truly remarkable how he synthesized all these different strands of knowledge, right?
It's a very holistic approach.
Yeah, history, sociology, economics, philosophy, spirituality.
All interconnected.
Yeah, into this grand tapestry of human experience.
He was a true polymath.
Yeah.
Centuries ahead of his time in so many ways.
But what's even more incredible to me is that his work had this profound impact.
It did.
On later thinkers.
Even though it was essentially lost to the Western world for centuries.
Wait, really? His work was forgotten.
It was like a hidden treasure.
For centuries?
Yeah, for centuries.
How did that happen?
It's a bit of a mystery. The Muqaddimah was widely read and studied in the Muslim world for centuries after his death.
Okay.
But it wasn't until the 19th century.
Wow, so that's like...
that European scholars rediscovered it.
500 years later?
Yeah, something like that. And they began to grapple with its complexities.
So his work was like this hidden treasure just waiting to be unearthed.
Awaiting rediscovery.
And its wisdom shared with a new audience.
Exactly. And when it was finally translated into European languages, it caused a sensation.
Really?
Historians, sociologists, economists, even political scientists were amazed by the depth and originality of his thought.
It's like he was speaking directly to them.
Across the century.
Across the centuries, offering insights that were just as relevant in the modern world
as they were in his own time.
So he wasn't just a scholar of the past. He was offering insights into the human condition.
Timeless insights that continue to shape our understanding of the world today.
And his influence continues to this day.
It does.
Right. Like, I know his concept of asabiyyah has been used to analyze
all sorts of things.
Everything from nationalism
to
social movements
to the formation of groups and identities.
Right. And his cyclical theory of dynasties has been applied
to understanding the rise and fall of empires.
Right. Throughout history.
Throughout history, exactly.
And even his insights on economics, particularly those observations about the relationship between population density.
Yes. Population density.
Resource availability.
And the economic prosperity.
Right. Those have resonated with later economists.
They have. They've influenced economic thought.
It's incredible to me that he achieved all of this without the benefit of modern scientific methods.
He didn't have statistical analysis.
Right.
He didn't have access to vast libraries of information.
Yeah.
He relied primarily on his own observations, his knowledge of history, and his brilliant powers of reasoning.
It's a testament to the power of human intellect.
It is.
The ability to make sense of the world through
careful observation and deep thought.
But I'm curious, what would Ibn Khaldun think of our world today?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, could his insights help us navigate the complexities of the 21st century?
That's a great question, and one that each of you listening will have to ponder on your own.
Yeah, there's no easy answer.
But I think his emphasis on the importance of social cohesion, the need for strong leadership, and the dangers of excessive materialism are as relevant today.
Perhaps even more so.
Yeah, than they were in his own time.
He was very clear about how luxury and the pursuit of wealth could corrupt even the most powerful society.
Yeah, he was very concerned about that.
He believed that when societies become too focused on material possessions, on individual gain over collective good, they lose that vital sense of asabiyyah.
That shared purpose.
That willingness to sacrifice for the common good.
It's almost like a warning, right?
It is a warning.
A reminder that material progress
doesn't necessarily equate to moral or social progress.
Yeah, that's something to think about.
It is. It's a challenge.
Yeah. Well, this has been an incredible deep dive.
It has been fascinating.
Thank you so much for sharing your expertise.
My pleasure.
And helping us to understand this truly remarkable thinker.
Ibn Khaldun's Muqaddimah is a gift that keeps on giving.
It really is.
Offering insights that are both timeless and timely.
Yeah, I encourage all of you to explore his work for yourselves.
Absolutely.
And see what gems of wisdom you can uncover.
You might be surprised.
Yeah. And that's it for this episode of The Deep Dive.
Thanks for joining us.
We hope you enjoyed this journey into the brilliant
and complex
world of Ibn Khaldun.
Until next time.
Until next time, keep those mental gears turning.